Hello, this is Crystal Stanich, and thank you for joining me for this week's First Chapter Friday. Today I will be reading from Jessie Greengrass's The High House. Chapter 1. Kiro. The High House belonged to Francesca's uncle first, but the uncle died not long after she and my father met. He had no children of his own, and so he left the house to Francesca, and the parcel of land that went with it, the orchard and the vegetable garden, the tide pool, the mill. For a long time, the house had been neglected. When I first came here for summer holidays with Francesca and with her father, damp patches spread around the corners of the downstairs rooms. Tiles were missing from the roof. I remember the chill the house had, even in summer, and the way the wind swooped down the chimneys at night. The orchard, outside the kitchen doors, was overgrown, and beyond it, past the unruly beech hedge with its branch-obstructed arch, the tide pool was choked with reeds. Twice in every 24 hours, water would flow into the pool, but the sluice gate was long shattered, and so, where once the water would have been held to turn the wheel, it only trickled out again as soon as the tide began to ebb. The mill had half fallen into the mud. The wheel was rotten. It would have been used to grind wheat when it was built, and now it turns again and powers our generator, which gives us light in winter for as long as we have the bulbs, and runs the fridge in summer. Now, the orchard is carefully pruned. We do the apples in winter and the plums at midsummer, as Grandy taught us, carefully cleaning and sharpening the pruning saw, keeping the secateurs on string round our necks, because they are so easy to lose. Now, the hedge is clipped. In the vegetable garden, things grow in rows. There is a greenhouse with all its glass intact. This is what we do now. We dig and we weed. We plant. We stir seed. And we watch the weather carefully for signs of frost. Now there are hens in the hen coop, although in winter they live mainly in the scullery. We have fields too, which we have claimed because there's no one else to want them. But when I was a child, the orchard and the gardens were overgrown. The coop was empty, the house was dusty and unloved. The High House isn't high, really, but only higher than the land around it, so that when it was first built, before the river had been banked and the cuts made to drain the land, when the rain was heavy and the tide was up, and the water spread where it wanted, the house would have been an island, almost, with only the westerly part of its land unflooded, a causeway above the waterline joining the house to the heath. And now, at times, it is almost an island again. In those first years, before Polly was born, after Francesca came to live with me and father, we used to come here for our summer holiday, the three of us spreading out through the rooms of the High House, all into our different places. We were very separate. Francesca worked up in one of the top rooms, one we use now to store apples, spread in lines across the floorboards, and potatoes in sacks. I roamed the garden, building dens in the honeysuckle that crept across the rooms of the walled garden, decorating my hair with goosegrass, making fairy umbrellas out of coltsfoot leaves. Father stayed in the kitchen. He sat in the old armchair by the French doors, reading, or he stood at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables to make lunch. When I was tired of being by myself, I came in from the garden and trailed after him, nagging to be taken somewhere. Where, though, Kiro? The pool, please. I loved the tide pool then. Even now, when we are so reliant on it, I regret the loss of its wellness, the way it was before Francesca restored the mill, when reeds grew down close around its edges, and the small creatures rustled in and out of them, going about their secret business. I loved how still it was, the way the water rose and fell, creeping rippleless up the banks, the way its surface shone when sunlight caught it. But father was afraid of me falling in, or getting caught in the mud, so I wasn't allowed to go near it by myself. Oh, all right, he said, and went to find his jacket and his boots. I waited for him in the orchard, joggling from one foot to the other, until at last he came out to me and we walked through the hedge. down the path that slopes through a sort of meadow to where the pool is. There he sat and watched as I swished through the grasses, taking off my shoes to feel the mud suck around my feet, searching for treasures, stones or feathers, or once, miraculously, a nest of eggs, each one cracked open where its chick had hatched, but otherwise intact, pale blue, speckled, near weightless, in the palm of my hand. He watched me until the shadows lengthened to cover the pool entirely, until I started to shiver and yawn, and then he said, "Home time, Kiro, chop chop." I didn't want to put my shoes back on. "Leave them off, then." I gave him my shoes to carry and held his hand, and together we walked back to the High House, where Francesca, alone in her upstairs room, kept working. And that is the beginning of Jessie Greengrass's The High House. If you would like to check this out, it is available through the Evergreen system. Please join me here next week as I read from the beginning of Marie Benedict's Her Hidden Genius. Thank you and have a great week.